most of you guys, this is your first competition, so Longcycle is the one I suggest for your first competition. It's honestly, I got that from Dennis Vasiliev, who was my coach. He would talk about it's slower, right? You're not doing 200 reps. You might, in a 5-minute competition specifically, you're doing 30, maybe 50 reps in 5 minutes, you know, because you've got two different things that you have to do. You have to do a double bell clean, and you have to do a jerk, right? And because you have those two things, you don't have too many of one thing. So if you're doing something wrong, the likelihood that you're hurting yourself is much, much less. Anyway, so Longcycle is the one I suggest for you guys for your first competition. Let's go over a few things and really start working on the technique of Longcycle, understanding what you have to make it a good rep and not get a no count. For those that don't know what that means, a no count means you did a rep, but it does not count because you didn't perform the action properly or stop properly or whatever the reasoning is. For some reason, that rep did not count. And you want to pay attention to that, especially in these video submissions. If you're competing with me and you're in my gym, I'll call it out. I'll call out no count. But if you're going to do a video submission, you don't have that person doing it for you. So you might have 50 reps, but 30 of them are no counts. You just completely failed the competition. You're not going to get a rank. You're not going to get anything. And it's all because you didn't understand the rules of what's happening. So first, let's go over what the actual movement is and what you have to do to get it to pass. You have to swing between your legs. Has to go between your legs. Doesn't have to go far between your legs, but it has to get below your hips and has to have an actual swing to it. Come up and into the rack position, right? When you come up from the bottom, there has to be a fixation here. They call it fixation. They literally mean stop, a full stop. Comes up, boom. We stop for a moment at least. We can't be moving around doing stuff. We have to stop for a moment. Then you're going to dip your knees, go up, dip your knees again. Now you want to be in this locked out point. Most people will not no count you if you're not locked out and you have to press a little, but technically, if you're in a really harsh organization, which we compete IKO, it's not nearly as harsh as some of these other ones, but press out at the top so you could do everything right, but you're here, you stand up and then you press, that is a no count. That technically cannot happen in your competition. Other thing that needs to happen is once you're all the way up, you have to fixate again. This is your second fixation point. Everything has to lock. Just for a moment. You don't have to be here for like 30 seconds or something. You're just there for a moment. So a good rep looks like this. That's a good rep. Now, when you're doing this, those are just the things you need to make sure that the rep counts. Now, let's talk about efficiency. You want to be able to use the heaviest weight possible for the longest time possible, as fast as possible, to get the most reps and essentially win the competition. So when we're talking about efficiency of here, we're talking about efficiency of movement. How do I use as little muscle as possible? How do I find the right breathing patterns so I can keep moving? I like to talk about Kettlebell Sport as if it's a long distance run. I'm gonna run 10 miles. I wanna have a nice steady gait. I want everything to be working properly. My arm swing is perfect. My breathing is perfect, so I can keep going that whole time at that pace. And by the end of it, it was hard maybe, but you used your energy appropriately so you didn't burn out at the 5-mile mark and never make it to the 10-mile mark, right? So the efficiency of the movement is some in the beginning, some in the end, but how we're using it. We're going to use our legs more than our arms totally. Our arms are guiding and controlling, and that's really what they're doing. All the energy should come from our legs. So let's talk about the clean. we're here in the rack position. If you've got a good rack position, right, where your elbows are tucked into your sides here, your hands are probably interlocked, right? I'll see if I can bring this in. Yeah, cool. I love having the camera facing me. The handle, one goes over the other, hands go over top like this. Allows you to kind of use a little bit of this grip strength, whatever, but like a weird opportunity for you to hold it. And then if you have a hard time finding your hip bones, because you'd love your elbows to rest on your hip bones, it's really hard. Now, when they're locked like this, I can dip my body a smidge. You don't want to swing from here when you're all crooked, but it allows you to get that elbow connected to the hip, stack up your bones and go, all right, cool, and rest for a moment, right? Now, you probably don't want to do it all on one side. You want to be able to move from one side to the other, but it's a thing to learn. And if you get a good kettlebell belt, your elbows will kind of get to tuck into it a little bit. It eats up some of that space between your hip bone and your elbow. It's like my hip bone's here, my elbow's here. This gap is hard to find. But when I've got my belt on, that brings it up a little bit higher. My elbow can find it and kind of sink in there, right? There are some organizations where you're not allowed to touch the belt, physically touch it, so you've got to like, your body's in the way a little bit or whatever. IKO doesn't really worry too much about that. I wouldn't stress about it. But if you can get a good kettlebell belt, like the one I use, Bellevator, which is Dennis's organization or Dennis's company. They custom make them in Russia, so it takes a while to get it. But you take all your measurements, you send it into them, pay your money, whatever, and they'll send you back exactly what you need, and it'll sit right, and that gives you the perfect spot to be. Anyway, that just kind of helps in that spot, allows you to rest. So when you're in that rack position, you've got your good rack, you can rest. Get that good breath. Especially if you're doing 10 minutes, this is a long time. You're gonna end up resting. You're not gonna keep moving the whole time. 5 minutes, you might. 5 minutes, maybe you can just keep cranking them out. But 10 minutes, especially when you get to there, you're gonna have to find a place to rest. So let's talk about our clean. I want my feet roughly just outside the bells. So if you put your bells next to each other and I take my heels and try to touch the widest parts, that's about-ish where I want my feet to be. You might have to go a smidge wider or something, right? I personally like them just a little outside of that, but you want your toes facing out a little bit, so when your knees bend, you've now made a bigger space here, because that's where the bells are gonna go through for your sport style swing, clean, whatever. Now we want to talk about your back swing. The back swing, I want, as the bells come down, my hips go forward a little bit and my knees bend, gives me that extra space for them to go between. So even if I was a little tighter, you'd see where it goes. But then I want my hips to come up in the back, okay? Up in the back. And you can tell when you've done it right by just locking. You can see the bells just stay stuck behind me. This means I had a good backswing, because now I have to unlock to let them go. So it really allows me to throw some effort into it and get those bells up into the rack position. So all the way up, right? Nice and long here, my head and everything, back is pretty straight. I'm forward, off balancing the weight. The bells are back here. So I've got the weight of the bells here, so I'm leaned forward here, offsetting that weight. My hips dip a little bit, it comes through, and I get to launch the bells up, catch it in the rack. And then I take a moment and I breathe, I fixate there. And that's your clean, that's what it should look like. If you have some struggles with that, of course, do your videos, Q&A, and I'll see if I can make more videos explaining whatever it is that you're struggling with. Next, the jerk. The jerk I find to be harder. The clean, people kind of get it. The jerk is a little bit harder. You have to dip forward like this. So trying to keep your heel on the ground, and this is where a weightlifting shoe helps, because it elevates your heel just a little bit. So if you're having ankle mobility issues, now you're kind of here. So your knees can go a little bit more forward. It's a little easier for you to find that spot. We dip forward like this so that my elbows stay connected to my body. And when I push, that first bump, they call it, right? I'm pushing from here, and all the energy is going straight through my elbow, pushing the bells straight up in the air. So hopefully my forearm is vertical, and it's going straight up in the air like this. Now we've got our second dip. We did our first dip. Now my legs are fairly straight, and as the bells are rising, my second dip is when I drop my hips underneath and my arms go straight. And then I squat. I'm basically just doing an overhead squat, but from that like quarter squat position. And that's what your jerk should look like. Hopefully, mine will look like that right now. Dip, bump, drop, up, boom, boom. That's what we're looking for the jerk portion. Now, that's hard for people, okay? So there are a couple of drills that you can do is, and I'll make a separate video going over some different drills, but the easy ones to think about are I dip here, and as all my energy is going up, I'm pushing all the way up on the balls of my feet, boom, my hands get to about hairline, about the top of my head is where I'm hoping to be, and then I get under it from there and stand it up. The more thoracic extension you can find, the better it is. The more your lats and triceps are released so your arms can get up, the better it's gonna be. I'll make videos on all of those things and how to get those better, but this is the technique you're looking for your long cycle. And then when it comes back down, I'll actually lift myself up a little, and a lot of guys do, not everybody, but a lot of guys do this, or a lot of competitors, I should say, do this where they come up, meet the bells, and then come down, and you want a little springboard in your knees here. So it's not just crashing down on top of you. Comes down here, boom, use that bump. You don't have to fixate when they come down. You only have to fixate when they come up. So it comes down, boom, and as you bounce through your knees, the bells then can come forward. You don't want them crashing and falling. You're not gonna be able to use that momentum, but you can use that little drop as a bump, and then they come out and you get that nice long arc to come back up. So they're up here like this, they come down, boom, okay? They're up here, they come down, out. Okay, they're up here, it's down, out, boom. Lastly, people get all worried about the kettlebells smacking into each other. Yeah, that happens. Whatever. Try not to worry about it. If they're hitting each other and trying to throw away from each other, that tells us that your arc is bad. So it means you're coming out here, boom. So if my rack is like this, and I go to swing and they come out, boom, and they want to go out here, that is a problem. But they're gonna touch. That's just the way it is, especially, like, this is a really fucking lightweight for me, so I'm throwing them all over the place. That's hard, but they will do that, typically. If they're straight here, they do these little kettlebell kisses. That's perfectly acceptable, it's perfectly normal. Anyway, there's my long cycle little tutorial. Again, I expect you guys to have questions. Post them up, post up videos of you doing them, and like doing the exercise so I can critique you. I'll take that video, try to give you feedback. There's a few other people, at least one other in this group right now that's also a certified coach, so she can critique you as well, and we'll throw some stuff out and try to help, and make sure you have a good competition.